Are you a woman who is down bad for some anime men? Are you afraid of women? Yes, me too. The game of Genshin has women, and I am a male. And as a male, I'm afraid of women. Which is why I have devised a very special plan, which is beating the world of Genshin Impact with just males. Characters like Amber, Eula, all of them are gone, wiped out of existence. And the ultimate goal of my journey is to play the game without using a female character throughout the progression of this story. Now, the rules are very simple. I cannot use a woman in any circumstances. This means I cannot have them in my party and take advantage of their alternative skills when they are off-field. The only exceptions of this is when I am in a domain and the female is in my slot. These are scenarios that I cannot avoid, which is why I will allow them, but I still cannot use them. I am allowed to invite a guest over to my world as long as they are male and they are trusted. So beginning my journey, I was with my sibling, Lumine, and then we had encountered a woman, and this was our worst nightmare, because that woman had proceeded to take my sister away. Oh no, how could this happen? Now she's no longer part of the party. Yay. This was actually a good thing, because I have now chosen Aoife. The game had allowed me to choose between Lumine and Aoife, and I chose the right person. So what would have actually been a tragedy in the canon version of the game was actually a blessing. I then had a chat with a tiny child. I could not identify if it was a female or if it was genderless. So I'm going to go with genderless so that I don't lose this challenge. She gave me some advice about being a man, and I agreed with her. I just sat there in silence, awkwardly looking at the sea. And then she told me to get up and go somewhere because I've been sitting on my butt all day long. So I agreed. The first thing I did in Genshin in my new account was attack a slime. Yeah, I don't know, that wasn't much to say about that one. Paimon then had introduced me to the world of Teyvat with this amazing nostalgic cutscene. Just look at this. I then touched the statue and all of a sudden, stuff started to happen because I went from nothing to something and blue stuff started appearing out of nowhere. What was this blue stuff? It was Animo, which is also known as wind. And it entered my body and I was like, oh man. Whoa, I'm an anime protagonist now and I unlocked the world. Yay. And Paimon was just like, you did it, bitch! You fucking did it! Congratulations! You're a man now! I was gonna make my way to the dragon, but then I got off guard and I found a little base, which I raided, obviously. And then I beat up some innocent hilichurls because why not? Oh yeah, and I also looted some chests. We then panned to a cutscene where Venti was talking to a dragon. Oh no, sorry. Some unknown bard was talking to some majestic dragon. And it was a man, so I was very respectful until my stupid powers did something. And then all of a sudden, the dragon's like, yo, bitch, get the fuck out of here. Whoosh. And Venti was like, what the fuck? The dragon was just really pissed off for some reason. So anyways, we were over and done with that part. I then slapped the most important artifact ever, which is a hydro damage bonus artifact, which obviously will come useful to me. I then encountered oh goodness, a woman. Oh no. Now I ran into my first challenge in the game, and that was the tutorial for using a bow character. More particularly, using Amber, who is a female. I tried alternative stuff, like trying to hold R and then trying to get out of R, but then it just made things worse because I couldn't get out of it at all, which means I had to resort to breaking the rule. I had no choice. I had to use her. The challenge was already ruined from the start. So we're gonna have to put a counter for every single time I use a character. Yes, I know. I'm sorry, I let you all down. So anyways, we had the new objective of defeating a hilichurl camp, which was relatively easy because all I used was a tornado. We then entered the city, and we were introduced to another cutscene. And guess what? It was the same freaking dragon that was all pissed off. He was having a little baby tantrum and he sent me flying. And then I did that really fun video game where I just shoot the thing over and over and over again. And then after we landed, we were introduced to someone very special.
You've actually got the power to go up against the dragon.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is Kaya, who is a man. Yes! I can't wait! We were going to be able to play as this character in the future, which means we would have Animo and Cryo on our side. But before we do that, we need to begin with the Amber domain. This was our very first encounter of a domain in the game, and we already ran into some kind of issue. We had Amber on our team. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot use her, and I cannot avoid having her in my team. I will just have to avoid her at all costs. That's all I need to do, really. At first, I was thinking to myself, how on earth am I going to get past all these spiky things? Don't I need to burn them? And yes, I would have thought that. And I was wrong, because I was able to easily jump over them, which I had no idea I could do. Amber was suggesting that we use her and poke the explosive barrels using our bow character, but you know, I'm too special for that. And now we encounter our actual first issue in the game. This is going to be the proper challenge that we have began with. And it's the fact that I need to use a pyro character to activate the pyro monument. So I was thinking to myself, I cannot use Amber in this situation, but I might have to, because how else am I going to get past? I had ideas such as going on those platform blocks, but it didn't really work out so well. So then I had the wildest idea. What if I inflicted my Animo character with pyro? And that's exactly what I did. I inflicted Aoife, our traveler, with pyro, and then I went towards the pyro monument and I infused Animo. And just like that, it worked like a charm. This was how stunned my reaction was. Yes, I used my brain and it worked. Now that we got Amber's domain out of the way, I also leveled up my gear and my character so that I'm a little bit more stronger to defeat the enemies. And I proceeded to go to the best domain ever, and that is with Kaya. Now this domain was a breeze because I had Kaya and Aoife who are just males. So I had no problem with this domain at all. And then we pan to the best cutscene in Genshin.
Thus you are behind this.
I summon water! Yeah! Oh my god, what is that? Oh no! Oh no, please! Oh! Knights of Favonius, always so gay.
Agree to disagree, laddie. But your involvement in this just got a whole lot more interesting.
We then had to travel all the way to the other domain, which was with Lisa. But thankfully, we had Kaya and Traveler on our side, which makes this a little bit more easier.
And then the worst nightmare happened. I was stuck in a room with Lisa, and I had no choice but to use her.
That's right, add that to the counter. There was no alternative choice. There was nothing in the room that I could have used to help me in this situation. So I was forced by my hand to use Lisa. And oh goodness, it was horrible. I hated that. Just watching the counter go up one by one. But after that predicament, I had finished the domain. And we were greeted with a new cutscene. But after the cutscene was complete, we unlocked Lisa, which we all know is going to be useless for us because she's a female. I leveled up my statue, then I proceeded to do the best thing in Genshin Impact. Gambling. After losing really horribly to the gambling addiction, I headed my way to the church. And fun informational fact, if you are starting the game, you can go to Sister Victoria and she will give you a free 4-star artifact at the start of the game. I also went to test Ayato because he was a male and he gives me primogems for testing. Then we proceeded to do the Kaya quest, which we did with ease by the way. Moving on from that, we did the quest with Amber to obtain our gliding license, which we also did with ease. All we had to do was avoid using her until we moved on to the second part of the gliding license exam. We had some tricky parts where I would have thought I would need a bow user, but I just turned out Traveler was the solution for all of it. And then we had the issue of these tillichells that were stuck on top of these platforms and I couldn't reach them, but I just somehow used wind and some of them fell off. I don't know how this happened. My guess was I walked away and then I walked back and they just fell. I tried to replicate it, but I literally couldn't do it. After that tricky part, we managed to complete that domain. And then we hopped to our next quest where Venti and I tried to steal the Holy Lyre, which was no problem at all. Then on to the next part of our quest, we had Diluc in our team, which, oh man, was so nice and refreshing. I was so glad that we have 3 male characters in our slots, but this was kind of sad because Diluc was temporary and he was gone after we did that. After this, we had to fight a field tiller, and this thing was difficult to fight. Except it wasn't. I thought I was going to be pooping my pants, but it turns out it was a lot more easier than I thought. Probably because I had leveled up my gear so that I was actually prepared to fight the thing. We also cleared the last part of the domain with ease. We then panned to a very beautiful cutscene of Vensi failing to seduce a dragon. And now we move on to our next part of our exploration with our male-only team.